Hi and welcome to the WARC podcast. I'm Lena Roland, Head of Content for WARC Strategy. It's day 5 of the daily podcast here at Cannes and it's day 5 of the festival. What a week it has been. It's been incredible. The Creative Impact Programme, co-curated by WARC and Lions, has brought the best of marketing effectiveness to the Croisette. Later on this podcast, we'll be joined by David Tiltman, SVP of Content at WARC. David's going to pick out some of the highlights from the week. He's also going to reveal some new research about the strength of brand in digital e-commerce platforms. We're also going to be joined by WARC's Anna Hamel. Anna's Senior Editor for Brands, and Anna's been interviewing CMOs all week, and she's going to tell us what she's hearing from those guys and what's concerning them. And but first up, I'm delighted to be joined by Joyce Kigathi. Joyce is Head of Strategy, Content and Media at Havas Africa. Joyce, welcome to the WARC podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
So it's day 5. We've made it. How has it been? How's your week been?
Intense. Let me just say, first intense, but also very inspiring. And to be honest, this is one of those moments that you look forward to for the whole year or for a couple of years if you haven't managed to make it. So it's been really good.
Yeah. And intense is the word because you have been judging the Creative Strategy Awards, right? And yes. I think there was like 774 entries and I think 24 campaigns took home some medals. So you've spent a lot of time in the judging room. Yeah. What was that like? Tell me what's your takeouts from in terms of the quality of the work?
Yeah, so it was intense, and I think there has been such a growth in terms of the entries. I think when we started the process, they said expect about 300 entries, and then it came down to 770. So that was huge growth, and that's a lot. And also just coming into the jury room, you do find a difference in terms of like when you're judging at home and when you're judging in the jury room. But in terms of also the quality of work, it's really, I would say, grown as well. But also in terms of, and I think I had this discussion in terms of the shifts that we've seen in the work. Like, for example, shifts from like looking at global issues from sustainability to more of a hyper-local approach to the way that brands view like the different issues that consumers are facing.
So that would like cost of living crisis and
exactly.
issues like that, sure.
Yeah, so cost of living, but also in terms of like the insights. Like I care about sustainability, but how can I make that very, very, very local?
Local to me.
Yeah.
So that makes it more relevant, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So brands are doing a lot more work in terms of trying to understand their consumers. And you could see it in the quality of the work. So that was really good to see.
And actually, Joyce, what were the judges looking for, particularly for the creative strategy category?
Yeah. I think we just boiled it down to about 3 things. So authenticity of the insight. And when I say authenticity, because we sometimes see a lot of the work that comes from, I have a great idea. So how do I tie it into my brand? Which shouldn't be the case. You start from the other way around. This is my consumer. This is what they're facing now. This is what will make a difference in their lives. Mm-hmm. And then also in terms of when you say also the idea itself, the purity of it, not an opportunistic idea, because we did see some of those. And it was very clear from the very onset. And of course, just the interpretation of how you take those insights and you take your idea, how you interpret it, how you implement it. So it was those things. And
the impact.
And the impact.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you want an idea that can transform a business. And sometimes, and I think you could see even from the Grand Prix, it was an idea and it was a strategy that could just move from one country and easily be implemented globally.
And that was for Renault, right?
Yes.
It was for the plug-in for electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that campaign and what was it that kind of, made it stand out from the rest?
Yeah. So I think when a lot of people think about creativity, they think about creativity in terms of, does it move you? Is it like so powerful? When I say it, I immediately get struck by it. But why this one is because, yes, there was a really great insight in terms of the audience, for the audience, in terms of people are not buying EVs just because they can't get the infrastructure, the charging stations, they're not as many. And I think this is a global issue. It's not just an issue in France. So you could see in terms of like where the insight was coming from. And what they did is they knew that a lot of people had EV chargers at home because they bought them just so that at least it would make it easier for them to charge their EVs. And this was across France, even in the most rural areas of France. So they created an app, sort of like an Airbnb for chargers. And in that way, it wasn't just a way to build infrastructure, but also a way to also put money into consumers' hands, which was really great, honestly. And as I said before about transforming a business and also scaling it, the impact of that, when you think about it, I can move that idea from here to New Zealand in an instant. I just need to be able to scale that up, the app to New Zealand, and it makes, and as I said, it's, when we were talking about the insights in terms of sustainability or other global issues and making them local, is that, I mean, we've seen that this is a global issue. It's about sustainability. But how do you take that and build a local solution into it, but also a local solution that can be able to scale globally?
Yeah.
So that is why it won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to those guys. Great work.
Absolutely.
How important is it, Joyce, to have diversity in the jury room?
It is absolutely necessary because our issues are not global. And again, as I said, and I think we spoke about this earlier, what we saw is a shift, a very big shift from the way brands are reaching and also speaking to their consumers, from looking at just global issues as we were talking about. We didn't see the theme of sustainability being as big as it was before. We're seeing brands focusing more on very local issues because, as we say, there's a crisis everywhere. I mean, consumers are going just through so much. So you have to really sort out their problems from like a personal perspective, but also from a very local perspective before then now you scale upwards to the global issues. Yeah. What are we talking about? Diversity. Sorry, I went off script there for a minute. So diversity, because I'll say for first world developed nations, the issues are very different from the developing nations issues. And when you sit in the jury room, in as much as when you're writing your case, there is a part about providing your cultural aspect. Sometimes you need to give a more, like, you need to explain it to other people if they don't understand, because they might not understand some of the issues, like for example, in North America, and someone in North America might not understand the issues facing Africa. For them, they might be non-issues. So having that diversity is really, really important, because also remember, in as much as it's our work as judges to look at the work and really dive really deep into that work, I might not always have the time to go further and always research everything, So having that diversity really gives the work like a broader perspective. Yeah. And also now, as we're seeing more entries, and we've seen people from all over the world winning more and more and more. And we've seen work from places like Nigeria, from Thailand, from Honduras.
Fantastic.
I think this year Latin America has won big. Yeah. And I can say that having that diversity you start seeing, the diversity in the work as well. And I think that's a very beautiful thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. Yesterday we held a debate here in the Palais. It was really well attended. It was our debate, the annual Future Strategy debate, where we asked the question, is popular culture dead? And if it is, how do we respond? So look, we know it's not dead. We had Dr. Marcus Collins, who was awesome, and Ellie Bamford from Wyden and Ellie Bamford from Wunderman Thompson, talking about this and debating this. So Marcus took us through how culture has transformed and how it's evolved, and looked at where we've come from, where we are now, and where we might be heading. And Ellie did a really good job of outlining the media landscape and how streaming has kind of had a huge transformation on media fragmentation and audience splintering, which is really interesting. And then we're looking at the rise of niche communities and what all this means for the future of strategy. So I just wanted to get your point of view on the rise of niche and where we might be heading.
So I think the rise of niche is a very good thing, and the reason is because also for like media and advertisers, we have to really dig deeper into real insights and to really reach consumers. And I like the evolution of targeting as well, because we've stopped looking as consumers as just demographics, We've stopped looking at just age, income, all those things, and now we're really looking into culture, because culture has the potential to tie in like all these audiences together. As we're talking about like properties such as the World Cup or the Super Bowl, when you look at the audiences within that, that's very diverse. But one passion point brings them all together. Yeah. So, we as advertisers, as brands, as media, we're working so much harder to be able to reach these consumers, and tying in like really, really good, authentic insights to be able to reach our consumers. And that means when it becomes more personalized, and I feel that you as a brand really, really understand what I need and what I'm looking for, then I think we also have better results.
Yeah. Because we've got there's still the opportunity for the big moments, as you say, World Cup, sponsorship moments, Super Bowl, Eurovision. But, we can also reach people through as Marcus was saying, actually, through communities that are representing our identity.
Exactly.
And are almost tribal. We're entering the tribal era.
Exactly.
And reaching people through their passion points, which is really interesting.
Absolutely. And maybe I'd like to mention, in terms of that very deep understanding of niche, also it really came out in the WARC this year. And I'll point out two campaigns that really showed how you can be able to really, just by that deep understanding, do something so simple but really brings your audience together. So there was two campaigns. So Popeye's Chicken Wars and also Wendy's. So they were reaching the Black community in the United States. And I think for Popeye's, just because of that really deep understanding of who their consumer were, and I think they had done the work in terms of bringing in Black Twitter and really understanding what Black Twitter likes, is they just sent out a tweet, which was just 3 words, and it said a really huge revolution that was really powerful. Or Wendy's, just by understanding the brand voice, was able to transform itself from an aging brand into something really fresh and really which consumers love and really look forward to. So that's really powerful.
I love that. I think that's a really good message to end on, because in a world that's dominated increasingly by technology and so dominated by algorithms, as marketers, it's important to remember that actually behind that algorithm, we're all humans. So you're actually marketing to humans.
Yeah. And in as much as AI will tell you so much about a person in terms of their interests and everything, the real insights that really change things for marketing are just based on understanding the human form, the human mind, the human heart, how humans really are. And AI can't do that. So let's remember that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Joyce, thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. My next guest in the studio is Anna Hamil, WARC Senior Editor for Brands. Welcome, Anna.
Good morning. Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, Anna, you've been out and about, very busy interviewing a vast range of CMOs. So what are you hearing? What's keeping them up at night? What are the key themes?
Well, there's been a few key themes emerging from this week, and there's a couple I want to talk about in particular. And one of those is opportunities in the creator economy. So this week, brands have been talking a lot about how the creator economy and the influencer space is evolving. And we're seeing marketers now working with creators in a much more structured way and longer term partnerships. So that's been a bit of a change. So it's no longer about a single Instagram post or a TikTok. It's about brands aligning their brands with fandoms. And fandoms is a really exciting new, well, not so new, but a new priority for these marketers and connecting with them.
That's interesting because that's sort of touching into people's passion points.
Yes, that's right. So be it cooking, cars, beauty, sports, and hundreds, thousands of other things. We're seeing the definition of influence evolve and this market mature in a very real way. And so creators play a huge role in connecting brands with not only the fans of the creator, but also more content around a specific interest or community of fans. And brands see that as a real opportunity to get more meaningful engagement from consumers into their products and categories.
Well, obviously, this is something we've covered a lot at WARC. We had the recent WARC guide to working with creators, didn't we?
Yes, we did. So if this is an area in which your brand or agency is looking to get more information, subscribers can access that on WARC right now. We have a lot of in-depth information around how to work with creators. So that sounds like a really exciting opportunity going forward for the industry and one that we will watch with interest.
Okay, and what's the next theme that you've been hearing about?
So I put here diversity gets real, and I think that is a really good summary of conversations around diversity, equity and inclusion this week. So obviously there's been a lot of chat, maybe good and bad, about the role of diversity, equity and inclusion over the last few months in marketing for brands, and I think that it's really easy to get caught up thinking that the backlash against Bud Light, for example, or Target for using a trans influencer or Pride Month displays in stores and think that there isn't space for this work and that now brands need to pull back. And some people, they want it to be that way. That's what they're trying to achieve with boycotts. But a CMO that I heard this week was very clear in saying, and this is a quote, "Make no mistake that diversity is under attack." And, you know, maybe some brands will pull back a bit as a result of what has happened with those other brands. But I've been encouraged to see actually just how much progress has been made with diversity, equity, inclusion over the last few years, and to see big advertisers putting their money where their mouth is on this topic. And that's both in terms of authentic representation in their advertising, but also, and arguably just as crucially, across the marketing supply chain behind the scenes. And that's been an area where there's been some really big moves made, and we're now starting to see the positive impact of those changes down the line. For a company like Diageo, for example, the drinks company, that means that now nearly 50% of their commercials are directed or produced by women. And that's up from single-figure percentages just a few years ago. So that's a major change.
That's a really positive story. I know Diageo and many other brands are really, moving the dial in this space. So kudos to them.
And it's not just about gender. We've heard examples this week of agencies developing inclusion teams in response to client demands for help with disability and neurodiversity inclusion in their work.
For sure.
And we've seen huge competing CPG brands actually working together on, for example, plastics pollution or open sourcing their green innovations for the whole industry to be able to use, including their competitors. So this stuff is happening and it's not going anywhere despite some of the narratives around what you're hearing at the moment. And so, we know the job is never going to be done. There's always going to be more that brands in our industry can be doing. But there is progress happening that can't be overlooked, and that is going to keep continuing in the years to come.
Great. And so, Anna, what's the third trend that you've been hearing from CMOs?
Well, and I think this is a very important immediate challenge that perhaps hasn't been talked about enough this week. And, we've been to a lot of sessions this week across our team about artificial intelligence, a lot about big data. And, that stuff is really important. But sometimes you would walk out of a session about that and you'd open up a news app on your phone and then you would see stories about a mortgage crisis, embedded inflation, and some frankly really alarming numbers about the economic catastrophe facing some consumers as a result of those things. And a recent study from the UK market in particular said that as a result of the mortgage crisis, for example, in that market, discretionary spend may go down up to 20% for some segments of consumers, and that's an enormous amount. And so that is going to have an absolutely massive, I can't overstate this enough, impact on how they interact with brands and their consumer shopping habits. And that was something that JP Caslin and James Hankins noted on the WARC stage yesterday. And, even if CMOs want to avoid that particular elephant in the room, amid all of the other things we've been excited to talk about this week, JP and James noted that with every line of expenditure now under scrutiny as a result of the macro situation, marketers are really going to have to prove their value in new ways. They're going to have to step up insights and intelligence, innovation. They're going to have to make friends with finance. And that's been something that we've had on the WARC stage this week as well, is how do you make friends with the finance department? And they're going to have to really think about streamlining their goals to really be focused and think about their priorities. So perhaps the elephant in the room or on the beach this week across Cannes has been the economy. But in my view, I think that's going to be a really big immediate challenge that brands are going to have to think about as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think consumers all over the world are facing a lot of economic uncertainty, and obviously marketers are going to have to respond to that in different ways. So
yeah, and the cost of living crisis is something that's been happening in a lot of markets.
Yeah,
and we're seeing that is not going to go away. But the good news is that WARC.com subscribers can access our content hub of content about the economic upheaval. We've been covering this issue in depth for over a year now.
We have,
and we have best practice case studies, advice, insights, well over 100 articles now. So we will not be leaving that topic alone for sure.
Great. Listen, Anna, thanks so much for your time, and go and have a well-deserved break. Kick back, relax.
Thank you. It's been a fantastic week, and it's been great to see the energy across the festival and so many marketers and agencies showing real optimism about the future, which is exciting to see.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Hello, my final guest for the week is David Tiltman, SVP Content here at WARC. David, we have made it. It's day 5.
We've made it. I'm not sure my voice has quite made it, but we've made it, yes.
So look, let's get right into it. So much has happened this week. What has been the highlight for you? I mean, yesterday we had a packed session.
We really did.
Strategy is constipated.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to try and explain what this session was. I'm probably not going to do it justice, but we have got the actual speakers to help us.
Great.
We've got some audio clips from them. So this was Rob Campbell from Colenso, Martin Weigel from AMV BBDO, ex-Wyden, and Paula Bloodworth from Uncommon. These are 3 really big name strategists. They're very well regarded across the strategy world. And they've got a specific point of view, which is that, strategy is constipated. What they mean by that is that not just strategists, but everyone who works around planning, marketing and advertising is honing in on a certain set of models and best practice ideas. And, we all know what they are. Obviously, they didn't name and shame, but we're talking things like mental availability, long and short, those sorts of things. These are great tools. But their point of view is that we're becoming so obsessed with these tools and these frameworks that we're missing opportunities for breakthrough growth, that we're becoming focused on incremental change rather than breakthrough step change.
It's bland, it's sameness.
And that's a danger. Everything starts to look the same in the world of bland. Exactly. Now, as I say, we've got some audio clips from the speakers themselves. So we'll start with Martin and then hear from Paula. And I before we play it, I just want to sort of give a shout out to Martin, because he is a wordsmith. Right, you could see anyone who reads his things will know this, but everybody in that audience, and it was a packed room, hung on his every word. And he's not like the loudest of voices,
no, he's not.
But every single word mattered. So let's hear from Martin, and then we'll hear from Paula.
I think we are in danger, or have in some quarters, forgotten how strategy works. I think we've been suckered into thinking that it works forwards, incrementally building, accumulating evidence and turning it into insight and putting it into the creative process and I think most people, too many of us, labour under the belief that that's how strategy works, that it's a fluffing service to other people's imaginations, or it's a supplier of disposable insight. When it doesn't work for us, and Stephen King in 1975 fucking wrote about that. It works from the future back. It goes, where do I want to be? What's the more desirable future I want to create? And then goes, and how do I make that real? It doesn't work forwards. It works backwards. If you work forwards, you'll only find yourself pushing the peanut forwards, and you'll solve small problems, but you'll never solve big problems, and you'll never seize big opportunities, because you'll only look at what's directly in front of you, or what the research says you have permission to do. But strategy fundamentally works backwards.
We need to look to other industries, because we came across a quote from Jesse Armstrong, who's the writer of Succession and a number of other programs, and he talked about going to the most exciting place possible and then working backwards from there. And Martin, Rob and I just got really excited about that thought, that when you go to that exciting leap and then you figure out how to get there in that narrative, it gets the most exciting possible solutions. From Fenty to, Gentle Monster, an eyewear brand out of South Korea, to, like Timpson's, a key cutter in the UK. There's all these incredible stories where they're not just iterating and following logic and the perfect process that inches forwards. They're taking this massive leap and going to these surprising, interesting, exciting futures. And they're leapfrogging the logic process. They are leapfrogging everything we're doing, because they're just going to where's possible and where is exciting.
Great stuff. It was definitely a call to action to just embed more imagination into your strategy. That message came across loud and clear.
Yeah, it was the one phrase Martin used a few times was strategy is revolution. And I love that. And you can see the crowd really embraced it. But there was a practical element. They didn't want to just sort of beat us all up and or give us a few examples. What they did was come up with 3 ideas for actually trying to start to, respond to, and what can strategists start to do a little bit differently. And we can hear Rob Campbell talk about 3 takeaways from that talk.
So the 3 things that we're saying is, 1, if you absolutely don't know where to start with the people that absolutely live in the subcultures around your category, because they naturally are finding, using their imagination to push the boundaries of that. You just have to look at how street cultures influence the high luxury fashion to see that side. The other side of that is, prepared to sacrifice, but we don't mean it in the classic strategy sense. We mean it in sacrifice control. There's a great video where Rick Rubin says to Jay-Z around 99 Problems, why don't you just sing the intro a cappella? And that sounds really small, but actually that's what made that song. And Jay-Z's brilliance wasn't just the ability to hear the music going, here's someone that, wants to make it better and has made it better. And so, prepared to relinquish control for the greater good. And the third one is, and this is for the industry and the clients, is kill the toxic positivity. This need to always fit in with stuff rather than really tell the truth. We use a quote from The Big Short, and it says, truth is like poetry and everyone fucking hates poetry. And the basic premise for us is strategy is a discipline that's really valued. And ironically, we're more revered than we've probably ever been. But maybe we need to have to work harder for it to get to the best ideas. And it's not proprietary systems. It's using the rigor of imagination to get to the most exciting place and start there rather than just hope that one day you might get there.
Great stuff. So, David, let's move on. There are still some of our sessions
They
going
are.
on
We're
today.
Still going on the Friday.
So,
We've not finished.
What are you hearing this morning? What's going on down there?
So I just want to flag one session from this morning because it's a great new piece of research. We don't have time to go all the ins and outs, but there is a write-up already available on WARC, and this will be one of the videos we share on WARC in a week or so's time. Now, it's a new piece of research. So it was a session on building brands for a new economy. We had Nancy King, who's VP Marketing at Airbnb, talking about the well-publicized shift in investment profile that they've conducted towards away from performance marketing into brand building.
Yeah. That
in itself was very interesting and is worth catching. The research I'm referencing comes from James Herman, who many people will know, founder previously unavailable, also founder of Tracksuit. Ourselves, so Amin Amrini, our colleague, was presenting for us, and also from a company called Perpetua, that's a sister company of ours within Essential that sort of tracks commerce, digital commerce sales in platforms like Amazon, and also lots of marketing benchmarks as well within those things. And the question they set out to answer was basically, do strongly branded products have an advantage in terms of performance metrics within Amazon? And they proposed this new metric called growth efficiency within a market like Amazon, or a marketplace like Amazon, where if you're going to spend additional money, invest more money into the sort of performance types of marketing on those platforms, what sort of increase in sales can you expect to see? And what they found is across this analysis of 100 or so brands, the average was about 80%. So what that means is if you increase your spend by 10%, on average, your sales will go up by 8%.
Right, gotcha.
But there's a big variance within that. So one of the drivers of that variance is the level of awareness that brand already has. So brands with high awareness are more likely to drive highly efficient growth from performance marketing. Brands with low awareness don't. So look, there's a lot more in that research, and I would encourage people to dig into it because it's quite hard to sort of explain without the charts.
Sounds it, yeah.
But ultimately what they're trying to do is bring this sort of world of brand and performance back together.
Yeah.
And it's a really important message in that there is value in creativity driving stronger brand, like brand health.
Yeah.
That then plays out in the efficiency you're able to drive within a highly performance driven marketplace like Amazon.
Yeah, virtuous circle, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great, there was a lot of interest, a lot of cameras going up when
that's
the
always
slides.
good to
That's
see.
always the benchmark.
Yeah,
Isn't
the killer chart. We love that. David, I'm conscious of time, so I know it's going to be hard, but any other highlights from this week?
Well, I guess I just rather than individual highlights, I guess look, this is the first time we've run Creative Impact as a track, and our hunch, I mean, it was an informed hunch, but our hunch was that there was a real appetite for more content that really looked at this link between creativity and effectiveness, not just making the case for creativity, because that's been done lots of times. We still need to keep making that case, but actually we need to ask more interesting questions. What types of creativity? How does creativity and media combine? What about creativity and on platform, on this emerging platform economy? So we thought there was a real desire for more content that would explore these topics and explore them in some depth.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done over the course of this week. And I've got to say, the crowds have been great.
They've been amazing.
We've had lots of amazing sessions, amazing content. So it's really been a big success. And I hope people who haven't been in Cannes have enjoyed hearing about it on this podcast, and will be able to watch some of the videos when they go on to WARC, and all our coverage as well. There is a but, though. There is a but. So
Okay.
there was a sort of mic drop moment in the Galloway session. We've heard him say this before, but this whole thing about the era of brand being over. And essentially, he's arguing that marketing is no longer an aspirational career, that he essentially encouraged the entire audience to go and find another job. And we don't agree with that. I don't buy into that as a concept. But I think we as an industry need a response to that. And we've made a start here this week for sure. But I think we need to be able to have a counter to that. And I don't know if we fully do at the moment. I think we still feel quite defensive. So he says that everyone cheers because it's Scott Galloway.
Yeah.
But then everyone came out of it going, okay,
Yeah.
how do we disprove that? How do we counter it? So that for me is the takeaway. I want us to be able to, use what we've learned this week and what we continue to explore to say no, actually.
I mean, I do wonder how much of that was a headline grabber for Galloway.
Oh, well, of course.
He
so
knows. Maybe we don't want to go too much into, because we know that brand isn't dead.
Well,
right?
no, of course we do. But actually, he's an influential person. And,
He is,
and actually, if you've got people out there who are saying, don't bother anymore, then actually, well, okay, we need a response.
Yeah.
So I think that for me is, it's been a great week, but, we've got to be mindful of the challenges that are being posed to us and be clear on how we counter them.
Sounds great. David, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lena.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Joyce. And thank you, Anna. It's been a real pleasure bringing you the marketing effectiveness insights throughout the week. And listen, while the Quasette will quieten down, WARC is going to be busy pooling all the insights together. We're going to be revealing the Cannes Creative Impact Report, published next Friday, the 30th of June. So please do look out for that. So that's enough from us. But listen, we'll be back to resuming regular service next week. So make sure you don't miss another episode of the podcast by subscribing to the podcast on your favourite podcasting platform. For now, thank you, and thank you for listening.